Welcome to the Agents of the Roundtable Wiki Community AMA. Every Monday at 7 p.m. UTC, we discuss Secret Network and its applications with guests from all around the network. This is an audio recording of the AMA. We hope you enjoy.
With the actual shade token, or is it just more of a fact that you're not seeing the proper pricing for the token?
Yeah, it's nothing wrong with the token. It's just that like you're gonna be buying or selling at a ridiculous slippage rate because there's no liquidity there. So, which is extremely disorienting for a user that just wants to come in and buy and sell. So like I said, that's unfortunate. It looks like Sienna has taken it off their front end. I don't know if Secret Swap has currently, if that's taken down. But long story short, your token's fine. Just if you wanna buy at the appropriate price and not at some absurd, slightly botted ratio, then I would just hold off till the core team lets you know. And then, yeah, I think that's probably the best way to describe the current state of things. We'll drive the ratio back down to the original target. We have enough capital to be able to do that on the spot, so just gotta hang tight.
And just to confirm, you said you think it'll be, and I'm not expecting you to commit to this, but like an hour or so before the airdrop will be likely live again.
Yep, yeah, 30 minutes to an hour. It's just literally in the room with the developers. It's just final sanity checks to make sure we don't miss anything else. So
I just wanted to kind of help push out that announcement so people are aware. So I just want to make sure I was speaking correctly.
yeah, and I would still hold off and just kind of let the official announcement run through. But I appreciate the wanting to assist on the comm side. Definitely.
Yeah, well, and I already announced it live. So I do want to clear that up with people who are saying I can't claim. So
right. Yep. No, we're hour after our target, which is unfortunate, but hopefully we can get this pushed out.
No, you guys are communicating well, and that's really all you can ask in these types of situations. We're all learning as these things happen.
Yep. No, it's a live and learn situation. And what is it? Well, I guess in our case, it's not you only launch once, because technically there's much bigger launches coming. But we'll definitely do a situation and communication analysis after this is all said and done, because there was definitely a couple of hiccups along the way. So we'll learn from it. We'll improve it. Like I said, nothing's broken. It's just problem solving.
Shout out to Stake or Die for their hot fix.
Yeah, no, seriously, they were super quick on it. So
yeah, and this worked out really well that we had this going an hour after the initial claim time, so it gave you guys a perfect chance to talk to the community, tell them what's going on, and try and be as transparent as possible.
Yep, no, totally. Yeah, if it would have happened at 12, we were running around being like, wait a second, what is this? But I think we have our sequential next steps totally mapped out. So just a matter of execution at this point.
Sweet. Well, I want to thank you guys, specifically you, Carter, and any of the other core team that's in here in the AMA right now for joining us. I know this has been super hectic day. I'm sure, this past week and the weeks prior have been super hectic. So hopefully after you guys get this push, you'll feel a little bit of relief. But yeah, I'm just glad you guys could come here and talk with us a little bit about some of the value propositions that Shade Protocol is putting forward.
For sure. Yeah, there was last night there was 3 articles that was posted. There was a tokenomics article, there was a what is Shade Protocol article, and then there was also a claims tutorial article that was posted. So collectively around 8,000 words of content. So there's a lot to digest in that front. But specifically the what is Shade Protocol blog post, I think everyone should take a peek at it, because it clearly outlines all of the different revenue streams that are in the works for Shade Protocol. As more time has gone on, I think we're really viewing Shade as this massive revenue share token that's attached to multiple core DeFi primitives. So if you're a shade staker, you're helping, secure Silk and its peg. And in the process of helping secure that system, in the process of making sure there's less active circulating supply, a shade staker and a shade token holder will receive lots of different revenue streams. Probably the most exciting announcement is that the shade staking derivative is currently being audited. It's a secret staking derivative where a percentage of the revenue collected from that will be redirected to the shade treasury. So that's just one example of a standalone primitive that feeds back to the larger system. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll say the thing that initially caught my eye with Shade Protocol and reading the white paper was the number of value capture mechanisms that the protocol has, and the magnitude of each of these. And as primitives are added onto the protocol, those revenue streams are going to just keep growing, and that's all the better for shade stakers.
100%. It also creates a unified end user experience. Because imagine you could go to a website and you have your staking derivative product, you have your lending product, your DEX, your insurance, your stable coin, your savings product, like all of it in one place, all of it under the same branding and unified user experience. Like, it seems like a very logical next step, as opposed to users being siphoned off to very specific applications. Naturally, there's like trade-offs in the attempt of creating this unified UI UX experience, but I don't feel like we've seen anyone attempt the multi-primitive vision unified under a single user interface, unified under a single token and collective value capture mechanism.
Yeah, when you came up with that Shade Protocol principle, were there any other ecosystems that you were looking at in particular?
They have Mirror Protocol, they have Anchor, and they have White Whale. And if you look at those apps, there's always like this little like pause when you start to look into how the value capture works. And it's just this weird divergence in incentives from like Luna as a token versus like an Anchor token holder versus a Mirror Protocol token holder. And so the really cool part about having a shared token across primitives is that like all the primitives share the same incentive, right? In terms of like what they're trying to capture value for and what type of user experience they're trying to make. You'll even see if you look into like the Anchor forums and the Anchor community, there's a set of individuals that are like, there needs to be more value capture for Anchor token. And then there's other people that are like, there needs to be more value capture for UST and for Luna as a protocol. And so that simple divergence in incentives could have been solved if a product like Anchor didn't launch its own token, and instead 100% of the value capture went back to Luna. And so it's a very like, it's an easy spot in hindsight, but I think we'd all just been very conditioned that like every app equals a new token, and that feels logical. And part of the reason there has to be new apps or new tokens per apps historically has been from a funding standpoint, right? Like people need to be able to launch a token to be able to kind of like pull a team together and have proper incentives. And so Shade Protocol, the way we really solve for this is by having a massive grants program that's good. And the thing is, we're not launching a full-blown layer one. All we need to be able to do is launch 5 to 7 of the key DeFi primitives over the course of 2 years, and we pretty much will have succeeded. Versus a layer one has to launch and they have to be able to support any imaginable application. So in summary, our path forward, our scope is very, very focused. We know exactly what we want to build. And so we don't need all these new application tokens because we can bootstrap these primitives with the grants program, with the community pool, with the development fund. to kind of get to that finish line without needing those side funding mechanisms that dilute value capture.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I was most curious on when I first found Shade was like, what is going to be the incentive for applications to, you know, build and integrate with the protocol if they aren't allowed to create their own application unique token. So yeah, the grants program, that makes a lot of sense there.
Yeah, no, and it's essentially like as the treasury grows too, eventually, you know, treasury can be buying back Shade and giving Shade out to these application builders, or it can just give them uncorrelated assets. But to date, we currently have 3 teams building standalone primitives that have 100% value capture for Shade protocol, and we're potentially on the verge of locking in 4th. So it's the incentive to jump in is you get to participate in a massive revenue share model, and it's kind of brilliant if you compare the competitive advantages you gain from hopping in on that. So
yeah, I wonder what the most valuable like value capture mechanism or revenue stream will end up being. Obviously, with the goals for Silk, I imagine that the fees collected for Silk transactions are going to make up a large part of the overall revenue stream. But as these other primitives get added on, you know, those small couple percents, you know, add up, and it's all going to helping stabilize Shade and Silk.
yeah, absolutely. I think from Terra, just looking at their ecosystem for Luna stakers, the conversion minting fees are what bootstraps like 90% of their revenue. I still think they missed out on the opportunity, like I said, of having all those applications feeding back into it, making the whole system more recursive in that sense. But yeah, I think the stablecoin is the #1 product to launch out of the gates. I think synthetics are super interesting. I think staking derivatives are super interesting. Lending products are interesting. DEXs are interesting. So you can, you know, probably read between the line for what's in the works.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So yeah, one of the other things I was thinking about in the way that Shade is kind of approaching application layer products a little bit differently than everyone else is not only are they building on a different blockchain tech stack, but they're also approaching you know, the way that the core protocol captures value. You know, you guys could have chose to build this protocol on another L1, utilize a different blockchain tech stack. You still could have had all that central value capture, but instead you chose to do build this on an L1 that had privacy preserving properties. And so I'm kind of curious, in your mind, which of those two qualities do you think plays a greater role in the protocol kind of completing its mission and goal?
Yeah, I think the way when we thought about L1 versus being built on the application layer, I think when you're built, there's obviously trade-offs to any decision like L1 versus being on the application layer. And I think the biggest advantage we have by living on the application layer is that Shade staking collateral doesn't have to be devoted to securing and incentivizing a validator set. I think that's like the most, there's a clean divergence from L1 governance and the whole security model that has to be incentivized versus simply inheriting the security and then building out all the other functionality and incentives. So Shade staking collateral, gets deposited into an arbitrage contract that helps maintain Silk's peg versus if we were a layer 1, we would have to have some sort of, you know, weird split between those two concepts. So it's governance is also simplified too in my mind.
Gotcha. I've only looked through the tokenomics briefly since it came out last night and I had work this morning. But is there any information on how much, like what percentage of shade that gets staked will go towards the Sky Arbot?
Yeah, so that's actually a white paper that Satara and myself are wrapping up. So that should be coming out decently soon. It will be something that's modifiable by governance. At the end of the day, the algorithmic stablecoin model works with or without treasury and staking collateral contributing to the stability of the peg. It's really just this extra level of strength helping protect the peg. So my guess is we'll let the organic ARB community take up a very large percentage, 80, 90, 95. We'll test out the mechanism, make sure everything's good to go. And as time goes on, we can grow the amount of impact and influence shade staking collateral and the treasury collateral has on peg maintenance. So there'll probably be a full-blown governance branch attached to Sky. And the people that would live on that governance branch would probably be arbitrage experts, right? And that's why I'm really excited about shade governance is there's so many different primitives that are being built, and we need specialized individuals that know how to optimize the different parameters and different actions that can be taken by the larger protocol. So
Yeah, I think it's awesome that governance has the ability to change those percentages, because ultimately shade stakers are the ones who are going to be receiving the rewards, and those governance token holders also being able to kind of have a say in how much they're willing to basically lend their tokens to the greater security of the security and safety of the protocol.
Yep, totally. And I think of it, you're using the language of have a say in, but the way I view it is shade stakers, they are the protocol, right? And they vote people into these different branches. There's re-elections attached to these branches, and these branches are ultimately serving public good. So I'm very excited for it, but I do want to just make sure that it's super clear. Shade stakers, shade token holders, they own the protocol. It's more than them just having a voice. It's theirs if we implement governance properly.
Yeah, exactly. I think you guys have made that fairly clear through multiple channels, that you guys are building this for the best interest of the community. Like your overall effort towards simplifying and making the UX UI as easy as possible to interface with, super safe, even if it means taking a little bit extra time to build these things and double check it. I think in the end, most of the community members in the Shade Protocol community and the greater secret network community would be grateful as well.
Yeah, totally. I appreciate that. Now, and I'll say this, like, we ultimately have to put the security of users above all else. And if someone wants to walk away from the protocol because the launch was missed by 2 to 3 hours in the name of security, then it's like, I respect that decision, right? There are other teams that have done launches like this perfectly fluidly without any mistakes. And I give huge props to those teams, and people have standards for professionalisms and launches. And I don't hold it against people who make a judgment call based off of a launch experience. However, I will say it's an absolute blessing that the community does have enough patience, that there are a huge percentage of people that do understand, why these things happen, and they're willing to give grace in the name of security and doing it the right way. So
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about the secret network and I guess greater Cosmos community is that people are very understanding when you're building kind of next generation tech and DeFi products. I feel like if you can really see the value long term, then you're okay with waiting another day or a few more hours or a week. The money's coming, the value capture is coming.
Yeah, and I actually agree with you. It kind of shows that the community isn't really concerned about a quick flip or anything like that. They're actually just genuinely want to participate in this airdrop and claim their shade, which is a really cool, a good sign, honestly.
Totally.
Yep. Personally, the thing that stood out most to me is how much effort was put into making that claim process as smooth as possible. Anyone that did any testing with the airdrop claim process, when you see it go smoothly, you realize how like the gravity of that technology and what they built, and how much effort they put into making these processes as simple and easy as possible. Because I've been a part of many other airdrop claims, and almost all of them have given me anxiety on some level, just because it's either something new or something that kind of goes against what I've been taught is the right way to act in the crypto sphere, like being skeptical by nature. And so, yeah.
Yeah, the front end guys are. I don't know if people know this, but I actually have my brother is actually a part of the core protocol team, and I have to take a huge hats off to the front end team because they've just been meticulous and determined and disciplined about walking through all the different possible user stories and bugs and whatnot. So excited for it to go live because they're despite the delay, it's I firmly believe if all goes well that it is a really well designed claim process.
If you don't mind me asking, how many core team members are there behind Shade Protocol? I know on your last dev panel video, I think you had 9 or 10 people on there, but you stated that there were more core team members working behind the scenes. Yep. Just to kind of give people an idea of how much is going on in the background, are you able to say how many people are working within the core team?
Sure. If we count across all of the key primitives that are currently being built, if you include the staking derivative product plus 2/3 of the other primitives that I can't mention yet, there is currently, let me just quick math. Yeah, it is right around 20 to 25 people across everything. In terms of like core team, it really is right around that 10 to 15 number between full-time and contractors that are what I would consider people that have been here since day one, but also anyone working on another key primitive is part of the family. So what is a core contributor? It's anyone that, you know, is a builder and is like a very inclusive and highly participatory community member. So I think there's even like the House of Shade and these podcast people, yeah, we're rapidly on the path of what I would consider core contributors that I would loop into that number. You know, it's kind of an arbitrary title attached to a level of passion and consistent discipline and consistent involvement. So
fair enough. Yeah, and I would advise anyone that's listening, or if you're talking with anyone that's interested in getting involved with anything in the Secret Network or Shade Protocol community, reach out to any of the members already working on things. Almost assuredly, they'll be happy to bring you in, tell you what needs to, like if there's anything in particular that needs to be done. And also, people are welcome to take on tasks based on what they're interested in. You know, like I kind of started getting into Secret Network and Shade just by reading these white papers because I happen to be interested in technical papers. And so, yeah, the community is always looking to bring on more people to help us promote, educate people. We definitely need it.
totally. On that note, I probably have to roll out pretty soon, so I can take like 2 more questions, and then I gotta roll out.
Does anyone have any questions?
If anyone has any questions, then make sure to post them in the meetings chat. And as soon as I said that, Stefan came in with a good question. So do you want to ask that while talking, or do you want us to read it out?
Yeah, sure. I can. A question: reading the blog, in particular the revenue streams, does the first entry of the list of revenue streams, Silk transaction fees, does that mean that when we use Silk in, let's say, any application, mean that we have to pay both a secret transaction fee as it's on secret network and a Silk fee?
No, there's no Silk fee, but there is an additional 1 to 2 cent fee in the form of secret for using Silk. Governance can move that back to 0 if they'd like. It just is a important value capture mechanisms for stablecoins traditionally, and we've crunched the numbers on having a 1 to 2 cent additional transaction fee on gas, and it should be identical pricing to like a USD transaction or extremely close to it. So
Are there ways to have certain contracts be excluded from that, or is it just flat across the board?
I mean, there could be permission contracts. I mean, I would have to consult with the developers, I suppose. But if we're talking 8-9 cent transactions and you slap on 1 to 2 cents and it's perfectly on par with other DeFi stablecoins, I think it's pretty small. But like I said, over time it's configurable by governance if they'd like for it to go to 0.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any other questions before Carter hops off? All right. Well, I just want to say before you leave, as I continue reading about all the updates and developments, one of the things I'm looking forward to most is how DAO governance kind of plays out. It seems like a lot of DAOs in the past haven't worked as well as they might have intended or wanted. And I think that the way that the governance is kind of broken down within Shade Protocol is really interesting, especially the sanity checks, which I think are going to be needed a little bit more often than we might think.
Yep. No, and I think to date, a lot of the DAOs, you have a core set of individuals that essentially want to be able to operate without scrutiny, separate from an occasional policy update on Discord, right? And I fundamentally believe that you have to be able to make governance that scales beyond a set of like 5 to 10 people managing a treasury without accountability to core token holders. So
yeah, exactly.
with the branches modularity, we could have 5, 10, 15, 20, like any number of multi-sigs that are entities that have been voted on by the baseline token holders to manage very specific parameters and very specific functions. And ultimately, the sanity checks make it so that there's still accountability to baseline token holders. I also think that's where representatives will be helpful because there won't be an expectation. There won't be an expectation to have everyday people voting on sanity checks all the time, whereas like they totally can. But I think that's where representatives will be helpful with all those things. But then of course this is where like centralization and collusion comes into the picture. So this is like governance is the endless problem, and the best we can do is design a very flexible system and can continue to improve it.
Is there going to be a minimum amount of shade needed to be submitted for proposals, governance proposals?
That's a great question. I can't say. I think the white paper might have a number in there. I think we're mirroring Secret Network's minimal proposal fee. I know CFI has a minimal proposal fee. I think out of the gates, it's I don't know. I think I would love to get community feedback on what we think the minimal proposal fee should be. We'll leave that open ended for someone to start that discussion. Is there a governance channel on Shade Protocol yet? I think there is.
Yeah.
So maybe that would be a good place for that discussion to be hashed out.
I would imagine that you want to have a high enough minimum that it discourages people from spamming proposals, but also you don't want to make it too high to where a regular, so to speak, shade holder is kind of barred from proposing something that they feel is worthwhile.
Right. And maybe that's where representatives could be helpful. Maybe like the minimum is at a certain point, and a representative can, post for someone who is a smaller token holder type of a deal. I mean, maybe like representatives interacting with people that are below the minimum threshold would be like part of the expectation of being a representative.
Yeah,
Something on the line.
that's a good idea. I like that. All right, let's see.
Anyways, I gotta roll out, guys. Thank you for your time. We'll keep you updated, and we're very excited to get this thing launched. So thank you for your patience, and stay tuned.
Awesome. Thank you, Carter.
Yeah, thank you very much for being on air, Carter.
Totally. Have a good one, guys.
Later, man.
Yeah, so everybody feel free to stay if you want to discuss some other things or talk Shade with House of Shade and the other Shade Spartans which are in here. They are also very knowledgeable and may be able to answer some of your questions if you have some.
Yeah. The thing that's been on my mind all day is just getting ready for this airdrop claim and then buying some Shade as soon as I can. And in talking with Anon and a few other people, talking about arbitrage opportunities initially on the different dexes, I'm very interested to see how that plays out. Just because there's going to be, low liquidity to start, and so I imagine that the arbitrage opportunities will actually be fairly ripe for the picking. But I guess it depends on, if the two dexes share this, like use the same APIs or what. I'm interested to see if anyone's interested in those arbitrage opportunities initially.
Yeah, so the initial supply, there will be 5 million worth of liquidity divided both over Secret Swap and Shenna Swap at the price of $6.5 per shade. So since both dexes have liquidity, I guess it wouldn't be too bad. But then again, the 5 million is not enough probably for all the people who are wanting to buy at this moment. So we'll see how it develops. I'm curious as well.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on how heavy people want to weigh down their bags with fresh Shade. That's awesome. So you said 5 million like USD value of Shade will be split between the dexes, or 5 million Shade?
Roughly 5 million USD.
Okay.
I think it's now probably a little bit different, but that was the calculation this morning based on the amount of Shade which is determined for this purpose from the tokenomics page.
Gotcha.
Which I believe is.
Does anyone have any horror stories out there about swaps they've done with terrible liquidity and slippage?
Someone actually claimed that they spent like nearly $5,000 on 0.3 of a shade.
Yeah, I think I saw that in the Discord. I hope they're kidding. I don't know.
Well,
What's even
the initial liquidity provider is in here, and I guess he incurred a lot of slippage. And I also tried to buy some myself, but it didn't work. So it was we will have to wait, I guess.
Is it going to be a new contract address?
That is a good question.
I heard that is what Jeremy stated like 5 minutes ago, so it may be. But I don't think that makes sense.
I'd hope that they are.
Well, anyone buying now is shafted.
I would hope that they would, if they post an update whenever the new contracts are good to go, that they post the contract address. I don't know if there's any problems with doing that on social media, but definitely would help people feel a little bit more secure interacting with those contracts.
Yeah. What about all the people that have already bought on the old contract, though? That'll be rough.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I'll quickly ask this, but I think it's that should be okay.
I mean, do you just migrate the old contract over? I mean, I'm not super familiar with the process, but
Do a one-for-one swap of the old to new.
okay. So it'll be kind of like one of those situations where you'll have to go to one of the sites and just kind of swap your V1 for V2 type thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean Carter did just say that they have enough liquidity to enough capital to fix that little patch. So hopefully.
Yeah, and just for anyone else out there that hasn't used Sienna before or very rarely uses it, I use Secret Swap whenever I'm trading or swapping for SNP 20s. But I was looking at Sienna Swap just in case there were some price discrepancies, and you'll have, in order to see the shade tokens, you'll have to go to the V2 version of Sienna, which I believe is in the bottom left corner of that page. See, I'm having trouble pulling it up right now.
But
Yeah,
someone
so
was
confirmation, people, it's the same contract address.
Gotcha.
good.
Excellent. Which makes sense, right? Because I think it was just with the actual claim, just pulling the wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what happened was
Yes.
that some of us were able to claim a little bit of shade, even though the main claim is not yet available on the UI, because there were some testers who were available to claim little, and they provided some initial liquidity for people to start trading, and then it happened that the claim got delayed. So there was a little bit of liquidity and people wanted to buy, but it's never enough for everybody.
Yeah. I'm interested to hear what people's thoughts are on like what a reasonable amount of slippage is to consider still submitting a trade. I mean, I imagine once you get a large enough liquidity pool, you're seeing slippage in really, really small increments. However, with new tokens, usually you're going to see a lot higher slippage. I'm curious as what other people's like slippage tolerance is.
I have a rule with new tokens. It's always just going to be a mess. You just got to go in with that mindset.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, in my opinion, you just have to kind of figure out what you're willing to pay, and after slippage, if it's still a price that you're happy with, then you go for it. But it is kind of it's tough to make the decision because you just don't know.
It's exactly right, because you're the market maker, really. You got to figure out what you think it's worth and just bite the bullet.
Yeah, I plan on buying quite a bit more than I'm getting airdrop, so I probably will end up providing liquidity with what I got in my airdrop. Hopefully, see a lot of community members also adding liquidity.
Thank you for listening in on the Agents of the Roundtable Community AMA. Follow us on Twitter at secret_AOTRT and every Monday at 7 p.m. UTC in the Secret Network Discord.